Hello and welcome to Gunpilling Episode 2. Today I would like to talk about how the hyper-reality of video games has warped your perception on firearms, with entire classes of firearms memed into viable weapons of war by the media, by explaining why those weapons are actually shit compared to their contemporaries. Now in the real world, every military on the planet uses assault rifles or battle rifles as their service weapon, if they're competent, as in not British. These will be used in conjunction with machine guns and various kinds of sniper rifles. That's about it for the extent of firearms that are used in real life. The reason for this is that submachine guns and shotguns are garbage compared to an assault rifle for the vast majority of use cases, so they only have very specific niches. This is sort of a literacy test for being interested in guns. If you talk about guns and didn't already know this stuff, then you're a poser. Which explains why there are so many people on Reddit who will argue with me about this. First off, submachine guns for the most part are around the same size as a carbine like the Mark 18, but the Mark 18 with standard NATO 62-grain ammunition delivers twice the energy of a MP5 from the muzzle out to the maximum 200-meter range of 9mm. If we're using the very optimistic estimates of the effective range of these weapons, then it's worth noting that a carbine like the Mark 18 is on paper effective out to 500 meters. This is just for comparing a 5.56er of similar size and weight to a 9mm. If you look at actual service rifles, the disparity is even bigger. A M4 carbine-length barrel is effective out to 600 meters and delivers 350% as much energy from the muzzle, while a full-length M16 barrel is effective out to 800 meters and delivers over 4 times as much energy as a 9mm. And it's not just the weapon itself that is the same size. 5.56 and 9mm cartridges are the same weight at about 12 grams apiece. Because the 9mm bullet is so much heavier, it offsets the weight saved on propellant and casing. 45 is even worse. It weighs on average 21 grams instead of 12 apiece, putting it closer in the weight range of 7.62 NATO. Something a lot of people don't realize at first either is that the recoil on these pistol calibers is usually worse than what you would get on a rifle too. There are exceptions such as the MP5, but most submachine guns are blowback operated, with gas piston operation necessary for any practical automatic rifle, and so the mass shifting around as the rifle cycles and hits the shooter's shoulder is minimized. Although any healthy adult should be able to control either with a little bit of training, there are a few advantages to submachine guns, but they are mostly lost in the military. First off, since the cartridge is shorter, you can make a shorter gun. You can't feed a rifle cartridge through a grip-loaded magazine like on a pistol or an Uzi, since it would be too long to be gripped properly. Pistol calibers are also more effective at subsonic velocities, since you can squeeze out more kinetic energy from the same velocity with a heavier bullet. Although this isn't an inherent advantage, as specialized cartridges like 300 Cuckout can do the same thing, while also switching to supersonic ammunition and giving you AK-47 ballistics. Outside of the military, there are also advantages with cost. Submachine guns have less stress put on their action when they're fired. They're also generally simpler designs thanks to their blowback operation. And if you have a police department that orders the same ammunition for their sidearms and long arms, they can save money by making larger bulk orders. In addition to the fact that pistol cartridges are generally cheaper, but none of this is relevant to a military that is in any position to win a war. Most positive traits you see with a submachine gun in a video game, like faster aiming speed, better hipfire spread, reduced recoil, faster movement speed, or whatever, is just made up for video games. The reason we still make them is because they're a cheaper alternative to more effective designs, so more realistic depictions of submachine guns will instead emphasize how they're cheaper or more compact than rifles. The only real exception to this rule in the MP7. It combines the compact size of a grip-loaded pistol with a lighter caliber ammunition that more closely resembles the ballistics of 5.56. For every 2 5.56 cartridges you could carry 3 4.6 cartridges. It also has better ballistics than 9mm and recoil than 5.56. Now let's talk about shotguns. Specifically, I'm going to be focused on 12 gauge. First off, let's get some context for the firepower of a shotgun. A typical 70mm shell firing a 1-ounce slug used by the American military delivers about 4,100 joules on its target versus M80 7.62, which delivers about 3,500 joules. So you're getting about 20% more energy from the muzzle with a 12 gauge. But there are a lot of caveats to that we need to discuss. First off, accuracy and range with a shotgun is terrible compared to a rifle thanks to the weight and low velocity of the shell, even if you use a rifled barrel. Penetration is also shit because of the large surface area of the slug. The disparity is massive to the point where 9mm is more effective against body armor than a shotgun slug. Most importantly, a full-powered rifle cartridge like M80 is an absolute killer, so the extra energy of a 12 gauge is unnecessary. You're less likely to actually hit your target, and if they have basic body armor, they can just shrug off hits where a rifle would kill them. If you really needed more firepower, you'd be better off using a heavier rifle cartridge like 300 Winchester Magnum, which is only used in reality by snipers for the superior range compared to standard rifle cartridges. Now, in case you're confused as to why I am talking about slugs, let's move on to double-aught buckshot, which is the most common shot used by the military. Shot refers to the actual bullets in the shell. Double-aught buckshot means that you have 9 bullets in the shell that take up the same volume as a slug, or more smaller bullets would for something like bird shot. Some basic math means that we are distributing the same 4,200 joules over 9 projectiles at 460 joules apiece. Now, in the real world, there is a massive amount of energy loss from the multiple projectiles in the smoothbore barrel as the bullets bounce down the barrel and into each other, wasting energy. In addition to their lower mass, meaning they lose energy faster to wind resistance. So you really only get like 60% of the energy of a slug, so it's actually closer to 300 joules behind each bullet. This is pathetic. It's equivalent to dumping the magazine of a Nambu pistol. It also has worse problems with accuracy, range, and penetration than slugs or pistol cartridges like the Nambu. Now imagine you're a doughboy in the First World War and you're sent over the top with a trench gun. You can't shoot anyone accurately until you get within 30 meters, and you're using the only long-arm caliber of the war that can't penetrate a steel helmet or trench armor. In the real world, it's basically impossible to miss someone if you're sharing a trench with them, as the fire bay would be at most 10 meters long, and the shot pattern over those distances with double-aught buck means that you're not going to hit someone with stray shot if you weren't aiming at them correctly. Meaning that you'll have to aim for center mass, where a rifle would definitely blow their skull out even though they'd be wearing a steel helmet. The only realistic advantage a shotgun has over an M1903 is that you can work the pump faster than a bolt from a standing position, otherwise you're at a disadvantage. Which is why in reality the concept of a trench shotgun quickly died out, and the so-called trench guns were used for prisoner escorts. And we're talking about World War I. We've had another 110 years of advancement in firearms technology since then, while shotguns have remained static. The concept of a box magazine-fed or automatic shotgun doesn't really help them either, since those concepts are fraught with their own problems. You can only load 5 12-gauge shells in a magazine that is the same length as 30 rounds of 5.56. In reality, the only way a shotgun works is if you use such a ridiculously powerful weapon that the shot is equivalent to a volley of rifle bullets, like the Carl Gustaf. Otherwise, shotguns aren't even considered weapons of war. They're seen as niche tools to blow doors off their hinges or shoot beanbags. In a first-person shooter, the firepower of individual shotgun pellets is invariably massively exaggerated. The most typical approach is to make individual shotgun pellets have damage levels close to or greater than rifles. You have nominally ultra-realistic games like Escape from Tarkov, which give shotgun pellets damage profiles equivalent to their 5.56 ammunition to make the shotguns viable within their niche. Since they played almost everything else realistically, the shotguns are still terrible. Thanks for listening. Let me know if you learned anything in the comments below, or if you want to argue with me and make yourself look stupid.